Imagine tapping into a version of yourself that's already living your wildest dreams. Sounds impossible? Not in quantum reality. Welcome back to Arcane Horizons. Today we're going to peel back the layers of reality and step into something far bigger than the story you've been told about yourself. What if your identity isn't fixed at all, but fluid, quantum, and spread across infinite versions of you in parallel dimensions? In this video, Beyond Space and Time, Tapping into Quantum Identity, we'll explore how science and consciousness meet to reveal a self that's multidimensional, limitless, and waiting for you to awaken to it. The moment you realize that who you think you are is nothing more than a construction of quantum possibilities colliding in space-time, everything changes. What if I told you that the version of yourself sitting here right now is just one of infinite variations existing simultaneously across parallel dimensions? What if your identity isn't fixed, but fluid, quantum, and infinitely malleable? Today we're diving deep into something that will fundamentally shift how you see yourself and reality itself. We're talking about quantum identity, and by the end of this video you'll understand how to tap into versions of yourself that exist beyond the limitations of space and time. This isn't science fiction. This is cutting-edge quantum physics meeting consciousness research, and the implications are absolutely mind-blowing. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were living someone else's life? Where you looked in the mirror and thought, "This isn't really me"? That feeling isn't random. It's your consciousness detecting the quantum noise of all your other selves bleeding through the dimensional barriers. And once you learn to tune into this frequency, everything becomes possible. The traditional view of identity is laughably primitive. We've been taught to believe that we are singular beings with one timeline, one set of experiences, one fixed personality moving through linear time. But quantum mechanics reveals something far more extraordinary. At the subatomic level, particles don't exist in definite states until they're observed. They exist in what physicists call superposition, where all possible states occur simultaneously until the moment of measurement collapses the wave function into a single reality. Now here's where it gets interesting. If the fundamental building blocks of reality exist in multiple states simultaneously, what does that say about consciousness? What does that say about you? Recent research in quantum consciousness suggests that our awareness itself operates on quantum principles. Your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self, they're all quantum phenomena existing in superposition until the moment you focus your attention and collapse them into experienced reality. Think about this for a second. Every decision you've ever made created a branching point in space-time. Every choice spawned alternate timelines where different versions of you made different choices. The you that decided to watch this video exists alongside the you that scrolled past it. The you that moved to that city lives parallel to the you that stayed home. The you that took that job coexists with the you that started that business. They're all equally real, all equally you, all accessible if you know how to tune into the right frequency. This is what quantum identity really means. You're not a singular being moving through time. You're a quantum field of infinite possibilities, a multidimensional consciousness experiencing itself subjectively through countless parallel selves. And the most incredible part, you can learn to tap into these other versions of yourself. You can access their memories, their skills, their achievements, their wisdom. Let me share something that happened to me last month that perfectly illustrates this concept. I was stuck on a creative project, completely blocked, when I decided to experiment with quantum identity techniques. I closed my eyes and imagined connecting with a version of myself from a parallel timeline where I had already solved this problem. I visualized this other me, successful and confident, and asked for guidance. Within minutes, solutions began flooding into my awareness. Ideas I had never consciously thought before, approaches I had never considered, all flowing through as if I was downloading them from another version of myself. Skeptics might call this imagination or creative visualization, but the quantum mechanics suggest something far more profound is occurring. When you focus your consciousness with intention, you're literally tuning into the quantum field where all possibilities exist. You're accessing what physicists call the zero-point field, the underlying matrix of reality where information flows instantaneously across all dimensions. the implications are staggering. If you can access the wisdom and experiences of parallel selves, imagine what becomes possible. The version of you that became a master musician, the version that mastered that language, the version that built that successful company, the version that healed that relationship. They're all out there and they're all you. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. This isn't about escaping your current reality or denying your present circumstances. This is about expanding your identity beyond the artificial limitations you've accepted. It's about recognizing that the boundaries between different versions of yourself are far more permeable than you've been led to believe. Traditional psychology treats personality as relatively fixed. You take a test, get labeled with certain traits, and then spend years in therapy trying to modify behaviors that feel hardwired. But quantum identity reveals that these perceived limitations are just collapsed wave functions. They're one possible state out of infinite potential states. And just like quantum particles can be influenced by observation, your identity can be influenced by conscious intention and focus. Here's where it gets practical. There are specific techniques you can use to begin tapping into your quantum identity. The first is what I call dimensional bridging. This involves creating a meditative state where you can consciously connect with parallel versions of yourself. You start by relaxing deeply and then visualizing yourself moving through what feels like a cosmic web of interconnected realities. As you move through this space, you can sense different versions of yourself existing in various timelines and dimensions. The key is learning to distinguish between imagination and actual quantum connection. When you're truly tapping into quantum identity, the information feels different. It has a quality of knowingness that goes beyond creative visualization. It feels like remembering rather than imagining. It comes with emotional resonance and often includes details you never consciously considered. Another technique involves working with quantum intentions. Instead of setting goals from your current limited perspective, you connect with the version of yourself that has already achieved what you desire. You don't just visualize the outcome, you download the entire energetic signature of that parallel self. Their confidence, their knowledge, their way of moving through the world. You literally begin to embody their quantum frequency. This might sound esoteric, but the scientific foundation is becoming increasingly solid. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles can be instantaneously connected across vast distances. If consciousness operates on quantum principles, then different aspects of your awareness existing across parallel realities could maintain similar instantaneous connections. When you focus your attention on connecting with parallel selves, you're potentially creating quantum entanglement between different versions of your consciousness. The research in quantum biology is revealing that quantum effects aren't limited to the microscopic realm. Living systems, including the human brain, appear to utilize quantum mechanisms for processing information. Microtubules in neurons may function as quantum computers, processing multiple possibilities simultaneously before collapsing into conscious experience. This suggests that your brain is already operating as a quantum system, constantly interfacing with multiple layers of reality. What's fascinating is how this aligns with ancient wisdom traditions that have long taught about the multidimensional nature of consciousness. Shamanic practices, mystical traditions, and contemplative disciplines have always included techniques for accessing alternate states of being and connecting with different aspects of the self. Modern quantum physics is providing a scientific framework for understanding what these traditions have known experientially for millennia. But let's get even more specific about how this works in practice. When you begin experimenting with quantum identity, you'll notice that different parallel selves have different energetic signatures. Some versions of you might feel more confident, others more creative, others more analytical. These aren't just personality variations, they're different quantum states of your consciousness, each optimized for different types of experiences and challenges. Learning to consciously shift between these states is like having access to a multidimensional toolkit. Facing a challenging negotiation? Connect with the version of yourself that's a master communicator. Working on a creative project? Tune into the timeline where you're an artistic genius. Need to heal from trauma? Find the version of yourself that has already processed and integrated those experiences. This isn't about dissociation or avoiding your current reality. It's about expanding your sense of who you are beyond the narrow confines of your linear timeline. It's recognizing that the quantum field contains infinite versions of you, each with different strengths, experiences, and wisdom to offer. The practice begins with accepting the fundamental fluidity of identity. Most people cling to their current self-concept as if it's the only possible version of who they can be. But quantum identity reveals that your current personality, your current limitations, your current circumstances are just one collapsed possibility out of infinite potential. When you truly grasp this, it becomes profoundly liberating. Start small. Pick one area of your life where you feel limited or stuck. Maybe it's public speaking, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's creativity. Close your eyes and imagine that somewhere in the quantum multiverse, there's a version of you that has completely mastered this area. This parallel self has had different experiences, made different choices, developed different neural pathways. They exist and they're you. Now, instead of trying to figure out how to develop this skill from your current limited perspective, simply connect with this parallel self. Feel into their energy, their confidence, their way of being. Ask them to share their wisdom with you. Notice what insights arise. Pay attention to how your energy shifts as you embody their quantum frequency. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You start to realize that the boundaries between different versions of yourself are arbitrary constructions. You begin to access a much broader spectrum of your own consciousness, drawing from the accumulated wisdom and experience of infinite parallel selves. This has profound implications for personal growth and healing. Traditional therapy often involves years of analyzing past traumas and slowly rewiring thought patterns. But quantum identity offers a different approach. Instead of being limited by your current timeline's experiences, you can access parallel versions of yourself that never experienced those traumas, or versions that have already healed and integrated them completely. I've seen people make dramatic shifts in weeks or even days using these techniques. A woman struggling with social anxiety connected with a parallel version of herself that was naturally charismatic and socially confident. Instead of years of exposure therapy, she was able to download the energetic blueprint of her confident parallel self and begin embodying those qualities almost immediately. A man dealing with creative blocks accessed a timeline where he had developed his artistic abilities from childhood. The techniques, the mindset, the creative flow state, it all became available to him through quantum identity work. He didn't have to spend years developing these abilities from scratch. He tapped into versions of himself that already possessed them. This isn't magic, and it's not bypassing the need for practice and integration, but it's accessing resources that already exist within your expanded quantum identity. It's like having a vast library of skills and experiences that you can check out whenever you need them. The implications extend far beyond personal development. If consciousness operates on quantum principles and can access parallel realities, then we need to completely reimagine what human potential really means. We're not limited by our linear timeline or our current circumstances. We're quantum beings with access to infinite possibilities. But there's also a responsibility that comes with this understanding. When you realize that you exist across multiple dimensions and timelines, your actions take on greater significance. The choices you make don't just affect your current timeline, they influence the entire quantum field of your existence. Every decision sends ripples across all possible versions of yourself. This is why quantum identity work needs to be approached with wisdom and discernment. It's not about escaping your current reality or avoiding necessary growth and healing. It's about expanding your understanding of who you are and accessing resources that can support your evolution across all dimensions of your existence. As you begin to experiment with these concepts, you might notice synchronicities increasing in your life, events that seem meaningfully connected but have no apparent causal relationship. This makes perfect sense from a quantum identity perspective. When you're consciously working with multiple versions of yourself across parallel timelines, the boundaries between realities become more permeable. Information and opportunities flow more freely between dimensions. You might also notice that your intuition becomes much stronger. This isn't isn't surprising when you consider that intuitive insights might actually be information flowing from parallel selves who have already navigated similar situations. Your gut feelings might be quantum communications from versions of yourself with more experience or perspective. The journey into quantum identity fundamentally changes how you relate to challenges and limitations. Instead of seeing obstacles as fixed barriers, you begin to understand them as wave functions that haven't yet collapsed into their most beneficial forms. Every problem exists alongside its solution in the quantum field. Every limitation coexists with infinite possibilities for transcendence. This shift in perspective alone can be transformative. When you stop identifying so completely with your current circumstances and begin to see yourself as a quantum field of infinite potential, everything changes. Problems become opportunities to explore new possibilities. Setbacks become invitations to access different versions of yourself with different approaches and resources. The key is learning to navigate this expanded identity with groundedness and wisdom. It's about integrating the insights and resources from parallel selves into your current timeline in practical, beneficial ways. This isn't about losing yourself in infinite possibilities. It's about consciously choosing which possibilities to collapse into your experienced reality. Your quantum identity contains every version of yourself that ever could be. The healed version, the successful version, the wise version, the creative version, the loving version. They all exist, and they're all accessible. The question isn't whether this is possible. The question is whether you're ready to expand your understanding of who you are beyond the limitations of linear time and space. As we close, I want you to sit with this possibility. Right now, as you're listening to these words, infinite versions of yourself exist across parallel dimensions. Some are struggling with different challenges, others have achieved different successes. Some are just beginning their journey of awakening, others are already masters of quantum consciousness. They're all you, and they're all available to connect with and learn from. The next time you face a challenge or limitation, remember that somewhere in the quantum multiverse, there's a version of you that has already navigated this successfully. Their wisdom, their strategies, their energy signature are all accessible if you're willing to expand your identity beyond the narrow confines of your current timeline. This is just the beginning of understanding what it truly means to be a quantum being existing beyond space and time. Your identity is not fixed, your potential is not limited by your past, and your future is not determined by your current circumstances. You are a multidimensional consciousness with access to infinite possibilities. The universe is far stranger and more wonderful than we've been taught to believe, and you are far more magnificent and unlimited than you've ever imagined. Welcome to your quantum identity. Welcome to who you really are. What if I told you that your entire sense of self is just one possible configuration of quantum information, and that beyond the boundaries of space and time, infinite versions of you already exist? Right now, as you're watching this, you're not just experiencing one reality. You're standing at the intersection of countless timelines, each one representing a different expression of your quantum identity. And the version of you that you think is fixed, permanent, unchangeable, is actually just a temporary collapse of infinite possibilities into what you call your current experience. But here's where it gets mind-bending. The you that exists beyond space and time isn't bound by the limitations of linear thinking, physical constraints, or even the story you tell yourself about who you are. This quantum self exists in a state of pure potential, where every dream you've ever had, every goal you've abandoned, every version of yourself you've imagined, already exists simultaneously in what physicists call the quantum field. Think about this for a moment. When you dream at night, where do those experiences come from? When you have a sudden insight that seems to come from nowhere, what's the source? When you feel inexplicably drawn to something you've never tried before, what's calling you? These aren't random neural firings or coincidences. They're glimpses of your quantum identity bleeding through the thin veil of linear time and space. In traditional quantum mechanics, Particles exist in superposition until observed, meaning they hold all possible states simultaneously until measurement forces them into a single reality. Your consciousness operates on the same principle. Right now, you exist as all possible versions of yourself until you collapse into the specific experience you're having in this moment. But here's the revolutionary part. You can learn to consciously navigate between these states. Your quantum identity isn't limited by your past, your current circumstances, or even your beliefs about what's possible. It exists in a realm where time doesn't move forward, where space doesn't separate, where the version of you that has everything you've ever wanted is as real as the version sitting here right now. The only difference is which frequency you're tuned into. From a neuroscience perspective, your brain is essentially a quantum computer processing infinite streams of information simultaneously. Every thought, every decision, every moment of awareness is you selecting from billions of potential neural pathways. But most people operate on autopilot, letting their subconscious programming make these selections for them. They end up experiencing the same version of themselves day after day, never realizing they have access to completely different expressions of who they could be. The ancient mystics understood this intuitively. They spoke of the eternal self, the part of you that exists beyond birth and death, beyond the physical body, beyond the stories of the mind. What they were describing is your quantum identity, the timeless, spaceless aspect of your being that contains every possibility you could ever imagine and countless more you haven't even conceived yet. But accessing this quantum identity isn't about meditation retreats or complex spiritual practices. It's about understanding that your current sense of self is just one frequency on an infinite radio dial. And like changing the station on a radio, you can learn to tune into different versions of yourself with the same ease. Here's where most people get stuck. They think their identity is fixed because they've been experiencing the same patterns for so long. They believe their personality, their capabilities, their limitations are permanent features of who they are. But in quantum reality, nothing is fixed. Everything is fluid, malleable, constantly shifting based on observation and intention. Your quantum identity exists in what physicists call non-local space. This means it's not bound by distance or time. The version of you that's wildly successful, deeply fulfilled, completely free from your current challenges exists right now in this non-local field. It's not something you need to become or achieve. It's something you need to remember you already are. When you start to grasp this concept, reality becomes incredibly responsive, because you're no longer trying to change your circumstances from within the limited perspective of your current timeline. You're stepping into the awareness of your quantum identity and allowing that expanded version to collapse into your physical experience. The implications are staggering. Every limitation you think you have exists only within the narrow band of frequency you've been identifying with. Step outside that frequency, access your quantum identity, and those limitations don't even exist in your field of possibilities. It's not about overcoming challenges. It's about existing in a version of reality where those challenges were never part of your experience. But here's the key: your quantum identity isn't separate from you. It is you, the most fundamental, truest version of you. Everything you think of as your problems, your past, your limitations, these are just temporary costumes you've been wearing. Underneath, your quantum identity has been waiting patiently for you to remember who you really are. Right now, as quantum physics continues to reveal the malleable nature of reality itself, we're living in a time where accessing these expanded states of identity isn't just possible, it's becoming inevitable. The old models of fixed personality and linear growth are dissolving. The new paradigm recognizes that you are a multidimensional being capable of existing across infinite timelines simultaneously. Your quantum identity doesn't struggle. It doesn't need to overcome anything. It exists in a state of natural flow, where what you desire and what you experience are the same thing. It's not bound by the rules of scarcity, competition, or limitation, because those rules only exist within the narrow frequency band of consensus reality. But accessing this identity isn't about escaping your human experience. It's about bringing the full power of your quantum nature into your everyday life. Imagine making decisions not from the limited perspective of your current circumstances, but from the infinite wisdom of your quantum identity. Imagine approaching challenges not as obstacles to overcome, but as opportunities to express different aspects of your multidimensional nature. The most profound realization is this: you are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are not even a soul having a human experience. You are a quantum field of infinite possibility temporarily focused into a specific point of awareness, and that focus can shift, expand, and transform at any moment you choose to remember your true nature. Think about the times in your life when everything flowed effortlessly, when opportunities appeared from nowhere, when you felt deeply connected to something larger than yourself. Those weren't random moments of luck or grace. Those were moments when you spontaneously aligned with your quantum identity and experienced reality from that expanded perspective. The difference between living from your limited self-concept and living from your quantum identity is like the difference between looking at the ocean through a straw and diving into its infinite depths. Both perspectives show you water, but the experience is incomparably different. Your quantum identity has access to information, resources, and possibilities that your linear mind can't even conceive. It exists in a state of knowing rather than hoping, of being rather than becoming. From this perspective, manifestation isn't about creating something new. It's about allowing what already exists in the quantum field to collapse into your physical experience. But here's what's truly revolutionary. Your quantum identity doesn't just exist beyond space and time. It can consciously interact with and influence the space-time reality you're experiencing right now. Every thought you think, every feeling you feel, every decision you make is sending ripples through the quantum field, literally restructuring the fabric of your reality. When you begin to identify with this quantum nature rather than your temporary personality patterns, everything changes. You stop seeing yourself as separate from your desires because your quantum identity and your deepest aspirations exist in the same non-local field. You stop experiencing struggle because struggle only exists within the illusion of separation between who you are and what you want. The most advanced quantum physicists are beginning to understand what mystics have known for millennia. Consciousness isn't produced by the brain. Consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality itself, and your individual awareness is a unique expression of this universal consciousness. Your quantum identity is your direct connection to this source field of infinite potential. This means that every limitation you think you have is really just a temporary focus of attention. Every problem you're trying to solve exists only within a specific frequency range. Step outside that range by accessing your quantum identity, and you're literally operating from a different set of universal laws. But accessing your quantum identity isn't about transcending your humanity. It's about remembering that your humanity is just one beautiful expression of your infinite nature. When you live from this understanding, you bring quantum coherence into every aspect of your life. Your relationships become expressions of love rather than attempts to get your needs met. Your work becomes a creative expression rather than a survival strategy. Your challenges become invitations to explore new facets of your multidimensional nature. The practical implications are immediate and profound. When you make decisions from your quantum identity, you have access to information that exists outside linear time. You can sense the ripple effects of your choices before you make them. You can align with opportunities that haven't even manifested yet but already exist as potentials in the quantum field. Your quantum identity operates from a state of natural abundance because it exists beyond the illusion of separation. It doesn't need to compete for resources or opportunities because it recognizes that in the quantum field, there are infinite possibilities for everyone. From this perspective, another person's success doesn't diminish your potential. It actually reinforces the reality that extraordinary experiences are available to anyone willing to align with their quantum nature. Right now, as you're processing these concepts, your quantum identity is already beginning to activate. You're starting to remember aspects of yourself that exist beyond your current story. You're beginning to sense the vast field of possibility that surrounds and interpenetrates your everyday experience. This activation isn't something you need to force or figure out intellectually. Your quantum identity responds to recognition, not effort. The moment you acknowledge its existence, it begins to influence your reality in ways both subtle and profound. Synchronicities increase, opportunities appear, people and resources align with your intentions with an ease that would seem miraculous from your previous perspective. The journey into quantum identity isn't about leaving your current life behind. It's about infusing your current experience with the full power of your multidimensional nature. It's about recognizing that the version of you reading these words right now is just one facet of an infinite diamond, each face reflecting different aspects of your unlimited potential. As we continue to understand the quantum nature of reality, we're discovering that consciousness isn't just an observer of reality. Consciousness is the creative force that shapes reality moment by moment. Your quantum identity is your direct access to this creative power. It's not separate from you. It's not something you need to attain. It's who you've always been, waiting patiently for you to remember. Every time you felt that deep sense of knowing that there's more to life than what you're currently experiencing, your quantum identity was calling to you. Every time you've had a vision of possibility that seemed too good to be true, you were glimpsing one of the infinite timelines where that reality is your everyday experience. The most beautiful part of this understanding is that accessing your quantum identity isn't a destination. It's a way of being. It's a moment-by-moment choice to identify with your infinite nature rather than your temporary circumstances. And every time you make that choice, you're not just changing your own experience. You're contributing to the collective awakening of humanity to its quantum nature. Your quantum identity exists beyond the limitations of time and space, but it expresses through time and space as your unique life experience. It's the bridge between the infinite and the specific, between the eternal and the temporal, between who you've always been and who you're becoming. The invitation is simple. Stop identifying exclusively with the temporary patterns of your personality and start recognizing yourself as the infinite field of awareness in which all experiences arise. Your quantum identity isn't waiting in some distant future or hidden in some mystical realm. It's here now, reading these words through your eyes, feeling these concepts resonate through your being, ready to transform your entire experience of what it means to be alive. This is beyond space and time. This is tapping into quantum identity. This is remembering who you really are. If this journey into quantum identity expanded your perspective, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe to Arcane Horizons so you don't miss future deep dives like this one. Together, we'll keep exploring the mysteries of consciousness, reality, and everything beyond space and time.